Well, Sebring was first established in 1950 as a 6-hour race. The curator was Alec Ulmann, a Russian-born immigrant who had a passion for aviation and race cars. And he had the idea of trying to create a sports car road race in the United States that would be similar to the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France. And he came upon the Sebring Airport, which had been decommissioned as a B-17 training base. And because of the road structure that was in the community around the air base, he saw a great way to lay out a road racing circuit that resembled what you would find in Europe, racing on streets and roads. And the airport runways gave them excellent long-distance runways where they could get the cars up to top speed. But Sebring turned out to be a very suitable venue, and over the years began to attract, or quickly attracted in the early 50s, the entire motorsports community of the world. The manufacturers, the top drivers, all came to Sebring, which is a little small town out in the orange groves in the middle of Central Florida, and everybody was kind of like, we're isolated out here away from the rest of the world. But the race took hold and really became internationally known as probably the second most important sports car race in the world, next to the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Well, my name is Ford Heacock III, which is important in this case, from Sebring, Florida. My grandfather was chairman of the race in the first 5 years, and so growing up, I had behind the ropes access and was able to be close to the drivers and the cars and the racing, and it was very inspirational. Growing up, I wanted to be a race car driver, and that passion stayed with me throughout my life, and the reason we're here today is that I was able to execute on some of that at a limited basis, but the hobby of vintage sports car racing got in my blood at Sebring. Sebring's been close to my heart, and I enjoy going back each year, and we're in the process of reviving a bit of Sebring's history in the form of the Automobile Racing Club of Florida. The Automobile Racing Club of Florida was established in 1956 by race promoter Alec Ulmann. It was necessary because Sebring's sanctioning body from 1950 to 1955 had been the American Automobile Association. Unfortunately, they withdrew from sanctioning sports car racing events in 1955, and Sebring was without a sanction. So Alec Ulmann went to France and met with the FIA and was able to be granted permission to create the Automobile Racing Club of Florida to be the sanctioning body for the 12 Hours of Sebring. It really became much more than just a sanctioning body. It became the promoter of the race. It became the host of all the social activities surrounding the 12 Hours of Sebring. All the great parties and the Grand Prix ball and everything that went on during race week in the 1950s and 60s were all labeled, or they were sponsored or hosted by the ARCF. ARCF was discontinued in 1972 because Alec Ulmann retired and gave up the rights to promote the race, and it moved on to new promoters. As we discovered not too long ago that the entity was dormant, and we were able to bring it back to life and reincorporate the Automobile Racing Club of Florida. Today, the vision is for ARCF to become a club of what I call Sebring alumni, drivers and crew members and volunteers, officials, and dedicated fans that have been a part of Sebring over the years. And we will invite them back each year for a reunion to get together and to network and socialize and help preserve some of the living history that's still with us. We're going to try to host annually a reunion for the drivers, the crew members, the volunteers, and the passionate fans to come back and network together and basically engage living history as you would have a chance to get face to face with drivers and such. The final objective of the ARCF is to try to establish a museum for Sebring race records, memorabilia, photographs, automobiles. And I hope that ARCF, through its membership, will be able to be a fundraiser for that purpose. We would invite you to consider becoming a member of the ARCF by going to our website, which is arcf.net. I'm sitting in front of 4 cars that raced at Sebring. The 1964 Austin Healey Sebring Sprite was prepared in 1964 for drivers Donna Mae Mims and Al Pease. It's a lovely little car, factory prototype, so it's a one of one. There was a lot of excitement around this car. Unfortunately, Al Pease was the first driver in the car, and after 9 laps, he, I think, hit a pothole, or there was a rut where he dropped a wheel off the racing surface, which broke the rear axle. So the car had to be retired, and so Donna Mae was unable to actually spend any time in the car during the race. But that car is all original. It's probably the most original because it's completely unrestored, and it only has 1,100 miles on the odometer since new. The other 3 cars are all raced together in 1962. This is the 1962 MGA, and we have 2 Sunbeam Alpines from 1962. The number 43 car was part of the 1962 team, as was the red car, but in 1962, the team consisted of Ken Miles and Lou Spencer, who you may know from the movie Ford versus Ferrari. Ken Miles was driving the number 42 car on the same team. And so these mid-tier teams a lot of times had drivers that went on to become quite successful. The number 55 car was number 44 in 1962, and so they were on the grid together side by side as car number 43 and car number 44. And in those days, the cars were lined up numerically, and a lot of times people they look at a picture of the starting lineup and see all the cars are numbered sequentially. Well, they didn't do qualifying in those days. Your number on your race car was assigned to you when you entered, and so your number assignment corresponded somewhat to your class or to your displacement. So the cars that got the lowest numbers generally had the larger engines, and the cars further down the field had the smaller engines. So all these high numbered cars are in the 1600 cc category. The 55 car completed the 12 hours twice in 62, but then it ran again in 1963. And in 1963, it was adopted by the Ferrari team of NART, N-A-R-T, North American Racing Team. And so the Ferrari team took that car under their wing, and they took care of it during the race with the pit stops, the garaging of the car, and they put a Ferrari seat in it. They put a Ferrari logo on the side of it, so it's a little British car, probably the only British sports car that's ever been able to wear the badge of Ferrari. So it's it was a guest of the Ferrari team is what I'll say. Well, I guess I need to tell you about growing up in Sebring and just the genuine experience I had as a child or as a kid. Every year, Sebring always happened in March, in the springtime. The orange blossoms would be blooming, and the town just came to life. The city draped international flags across the main street in downtown, the central fire station in downtown, the parking lot across the street for the Winn-Dixie grocery store became the area where they did technical inspection for all the race cars. So the race cars would drive into town, many of them right on the public streets, and be driving right through town. You'd be next to a Ferrari or a Jaguar or a Maserati, rattling their motor. And our high school was right across the street, diagonally from this tech inspection, and every year we'd break out of school early and we'd hustle across to where the tech inspection was going on. And also the garages for the auto dealers in town all opened up their garages for the race teams to move in during race week, and the Ferrari team would be in one garage, the Porsche team would be in another garage, the Lancia or the Jaguar teams would be scattered all over town, and they'd be driving around on the streets, and it was just a fascinating time. And I can just remember the excitement that would build, and the community of Sebring got so involved in the race in those days. Every civic club, every church group, every Boy Scout troop seemed to have a role at the Sebring race. My Boy Scout troop, every spring we would be involved in going to the racetrack during the month of February, preparing things for the race. We'd be painting buildings and stapling stickers on bleachers and fixing fences or whatever it took to get the facility in shape for the race. Also in those early days, my grandfather was very active in the race as the race chairman from 1950 to 1955. And my father followed in his footsteps, serving as assistant race chairman or co-chairman in 1966. And he also served as the financial officer for the number of years of the race. And I remember one year, after the race, he brought the car home with all of the gate proceeds in the trunk of the car. And my mother was just absolutely freaking out because the bank in Sebring in those days didn't have a night drop depository, and they didn't open until Monday morning. So we had to camp on all this cash in the trunk of the car for the weekend. So little stories like that are present all over the community of Sebring, where people and families had different roles in the race. And it's that community connection that I'd love to see recreated with ARCF as we began to develop it, because there's a real passion in Sebring for the history of this race. Well, I'll just say I'd love for ARCF to be part of preserving that history.